Good morning. My name is Jacob Rangel. I'm currently a student at Liberty University enrolled in HSCO 511 Group Dynamics, and today I'll be presenting my group leading report. Some key facts about my meeting. I held a sexual integrity class for men on August 2nd, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. at the Rock Church. The meeting consisted of a total of 13 participants to include myself and 2 co-leaders. The setup step was very important as outlined in the group counseling strategies and skills textbooks. Essentially preparation, there was a lot of communication to the attendees, when, where the meeting was going to be. And additionally, myself and my 2 co-leaders showed up about 45 minutes prior to the start time of the meeting. And we were able to set up the room, set up some coffee, water, and snacks as well too. The nature and purpose of the meeting was to give some background information and some insight on sexual sin, on why it's important to talk about these things, and really hope to create a safe place and safe environment for men to talk about these issues. And lastly, we really close out the meeting by briefing the Conquer series, which is a course we're trying to introduce in the fall and get more men to sign up so they could start the course with us. Group dynamics, content, and process. So the greeting and welcome, again, as I mentioned, we showed up early so we could set up the room, but we also showed up early so we could be postured in the entrances and give the men attending our meeting directions to where the meeting was going to be held at, because it's a fairly large building. Some members did arrive early, and obviously this gave us time to talk with them, establish more rapport with them as well too. But we didn't start our meeting till around 6:35 because we did want to give a 5-minute grace period for members who were potentially running late because they were getting off of work. For the group introduction, I gave a quick intro of what we were going to talk about, really proposed the agenda, gave an outline of our presentation, and then we moved on to our icebreaker, which for our icebreaker, I actually used dyads and paired up men with each other. And rather than introducing themselves to the group, what I assigned to each man to do is to introduce each other. So by using dyads, essentially. So some of the information I wanted men to get from each other was their name, where they're from, their favorite food, and their favorite movie. After that was done, we moved to a warm-up event. The warm-up event consisted of 2 worship songs led by myself and my 2 co-leaders, which all 3 of us are members of the worship team. Majority of the men at the meeting know that. We know majority of the men essentially. So they know we lead worship, and one of their requests was for us to sing some songs for them as well too. And then we went ahead and briefed the purpose, vision, and mission of the group. And we presented information on why we're starting the group, why we're passionate about this issue specifically, and just gave statistics on how sexual sin is impacting the church, pastors, etc. Then after we introduced purpose, vision, and mission in the group, we did move on to group questions. The first question I asked was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad do you struggle with sexual sin? Which it's the use of rounds as established in the textbook as well too. Now, using rounds for this question really helped me segue into the next question, which is, why is sexual sin so enticing? And then the last question is, why don't more men ask for help? So again, the use of rounds really helped me naturally segue to the last 2 questions. Every man in there gave feedback. Of course, we had members who were more, I guess, open to talk, and some of them started rambling. So again, we used, or for myself, I used some of the practices of actually cutting off members as well too. And then some of the members started rambling off about other issues not related to what we were talking about, and we essentially had to draw them back to focus as well too. After the questions, we did give a testimony. In order to preserve time, my two co-leaders were going to give their own personal testimony about their struggle with sexual sin, but to respect their time and to give members a little bit more time to answer our questions and talk, I was the only one that presented my testimony to the group. So I gave my testimonies. I was very vulnerable with the men. I told them kind of like my background and how I experienced sexual sin and how I'm experiencing different levels of freedom now. After my testimony, we did present the Conquer series, what it's about, the curriculum, kind of like the roadmap to the course, and we gauged the interest of the men to see if it's something they would be interested in and see if they could perpetuate and ask other men to potentially join our cause. And the response was really, really good. Hopefully we get about 12 to 14 men to start the course with us in September. Unfortunately, I'll be relocating to Washington State, so I'm not going to see it come completely into fruition, but the groundwork has been laid down. My self-assessment. So as far as facilitation, I did advise my two co-leaders that I was using this presentation also for a school project, and I asked them if I could do majority of the leading and facilitation. They agreed. They were very supportive of that as well too. As far as my evaluation, I'm pretty passionate about this topic, so it could be very easy for me to just talk about the issue. But what's really important about this specific topic is you do have to take a step back and listen to the other men around you so you could identify their needs, their struggles, and that way you could better serve them and help them. As far as my body language, I felt I was engaging. I talked really loud for the most part. People didn't have a hard time hearing me. And I was trying to keep eye contact as well too. And I was also trying to refrain from using my notepad where I had my notes. Some of the challenges to the group, of course, was time, is because during the questions, we did get a lot of feedback, a lot of men asking good questions as well too. But we did want to respect the men's time because it was during the work week and the meeting did start at 6:30. So we didn't want to run it all the way to 9:30 because we know men had to actually, work the next day as well too. And some of the challenges as well too, as I mentioned, some of the men went off about their struggle, but they started going off on other issues like COVID and mask and the vaccine. And I'm like, that's something we could talk about later, but right now we're trying to focus in on a particular topic. So that was a little bit of a challenge. Some of my strengths and weaknesses, I'm a pretty seasoned public speaker because I'm an Air Force recruiter. So we do a lot of public speaking, a lot of presentations to a lot of people. But the difference with recruiting is, you're really just focused on recruiting and answering questions about the Air Force. But some of my weaknesses, for sure, I think, for me, is my verbal pauses, because I tend to say And again, it was just keeping members on focus and learning when to shift the focus to another subject, because I never know if I'm doing it completely right. I think I am, but the more experience I get leading these type of groups, I believe the better I'll get with it. The conclusion and application. This group really motivates me to pursue ministry once I retire from the military. It is something I'm passionate about. I'm very passionate about men's ministry, worship ministry, but just equipping believers to go out and shine their lights and be the leaders that God has called us to be. And as far as for me, I want people to change so bad and to experience the freedom I've experienced, that sometimes I don't embrace the process and I get a bit impatient, but I try to think back of when I was recovering from this sin and how people were patient with me and how people walked alongside me. So I think for sure that's something I'm trying to work on, is just being more patient with the actual process. And my concluding thought to y'all is the biggest blessing for myself and in my life is to bless others and help them see them grow in the kingdom. That is the biggest reward I could get. God bless you and have a great day.